Welcome to Da Vinci's Discourse, where the minds of today's most innovative entrepreneurs are unveiled and explored. And my name is Kyle Campbell, your guide on this journey into the depths of the entrepreneurial psyche. So sit back, relax, and get ready to dive into the minds of the greats. This is Da Vinci's Discourse.
All right, dude. So yeah, Marcos, brother, tell me about yourself, man. What do you do? I'm fascinated by you.
Oh, that's really nice. So, I've been in franchising for a long time, and uh, what we do is we help entrepreneurs start businesses. So, if you think about Jersey Mike's or Orange Theory Fitness or McDonald's or any of these franchises, what they really specialize in is helping entrepreneurs go from where they are, either they're in corporate America or they
Mm,
are unemployed, right? And they want to start a business. And a lot of times the problem is when you want to start a business, you don't know what you want to start. You know, you want to be self-employed, you know, you want to have control of your destiny, but you don't have a big idea. And actually, the thing about big ideas is that, Howard Schultz goes to Italy and he sees all these coffee shops out there and he thinks, oh, this is amazing, right? And I want to do this in the US. He didn't have an original idea. He just thought, I want to do this in the US. He didn't think there was anything like Starbucks here.
mm,
But still, a lot of entrepreneurs don't have big ideas, but they have big dreams, right? They want to start something. And
right.
that's what franchising allows people to do. So I've been in franchising for a very long time. And the franchise that we grew over since 2012 is called Amada Senior Care. And Amada Senior Care is a franchise that helps entrepreneurs start home care companies. So the entrepreneurs that join us, instead of opening a Jersey Mike's, like a sandwich shop or a gym, they're opening a home care company where they send caregivers to seniors' homes.
Mm,
And that's what I've been doing since 2012. It's been a wonderful ride. We have 175 franchise locations throughout the United States.
wow.
And it's been awesome. It's been super fun. And then I have other franchises that we're growing as well, but that's been a big success, and we're super proud of it.
Man, you should be, dude. That's incredible. 195 locations around the States, brother. That's
75,
Oh, okay, okay.
175.
I made you
Yeah,
sound
yeah,
more
yeah, yeah.
impressive than you are, as if 75
I
wasn't
know.
enough,
That's nice of
man.
you. Yeah,
I was
that's
doing my best. I'm
fantastic.
trying to be kind over here. 75, dude.
Yeah.
That's incredible, man. Wow. So tell me this then. How'd you get into that? Because like you said, a lot of entrepreneurs don't have the idea, and that's the kind of person that you're targeting, right? So how'd you get started in this?
So that's a good question. I didn't. And actually, I'm probably
Hmm.
one of those guys that, as far as a big idea, there were two guys that actually started Amada Senior Care. Their name is Chad Fotheringham and Toffa Jefferson. They started Amada Senior Care back in 2008 here in Orange County, California. And in 2011, 2012, they decided that they wanted to franchise it. It's very common of franchises. You think about uh, Jersey Mike's, right? Jersey Mike's. I don't know if it was Mike who started the business. I don't know if it was a Mike or not, but he had a sandwich shop. It did really well, and probably somebody someday came and said, "Well, I want to start one of your franchises," right? And he started franchising.
Mm,
Chad and Topper were the same thing. They had this wonderful home care company here in Orange County, California, doing really well, and I'm going to move. I'm going to move. So they decided that they want to start franchising because a friend of theirs wanted to buy a franchise. A
mm,
friend of theirs called Robert Christensen said, "Hey, I want to be an Amada franchisee. What do I do?" And Chad and Tapa said, "I don't know. We're not a franchise." And so this is where I met Chad and Tafa. My brother-in-law, actually, Jared, met them, and he met Chad at church. Chad came to him and said, "Hey, I want to start franchising Amada. What do I do?" And Jared said, "Well, maybe we can help you." And that was back in 2012. So Jared and myself, we didn't start Amada Senior Care. We started the franchise company that took the concept and created the very first franchise. We sold the very first franchise to Robert Christensen in 2012. These guys that become the first franchisees are kind of crazy because there's no proven system, there's no guarantee, right? There's not like 100 other franchisees that were successful. Robert was the first one, the first guy.
mm.
And so we love Rob. Rob is still, a family friend. He's done amazing. Um, we've like we said before, we've since now awarded franchises to 175 other Robs, right? But it wasn't my big idea, right? And a lot of franchises start that way. They start with somebody who has a big idea, and they're very good at the sandwich business. They're very good at the gym business, or they're very good at the printing business, or whatever it is that they do, but they're not very good at building a franchise. That's a whole other business, right?
Yeah,
That's a
totally different game.
training. Yeah, I mean, you have to have a whole different skill. And so a lot of franchise companies you see out there, I would say most of them are founders who partnered with franchise people and built a new business. And so that's where I come in. You know, I wish I could tell you that I'm a big idea guy, but I'm not. You know, I'm not. That's not really my thing either. And you know what I love about that is I think so many entrepreneurs don't know that. So many entrepreneurs don't know that that they can be entrepreneurs without the big idea, right? They just need to go and execute on somebody else's idea. In fact, I think it's sometimes even better because it allows you to copy something that's already proven.
Right. Yeah.
Instead of you doing
Testing
something brand new that no one's ever done and taking a tremendous amount of risk.
No kidding, because that's the thing about starting a business, dude. There's so many places that can go wrong. I mean, you've got the upfront marketing, and then you've got the email campaign, then you've got the funnel, then you've got the webinar, or whatever it may be for the conversion mechanism. There are so many things to test along the way. And so each test point is something that can fail, and it's most likely going to fail, in fact. So a lot of entrepreneurs will start and then they don't get anywhere because they're not able to formulate these tests in time. And so this is my question to you, dude. How do you know when it makes sense to franchise as opposed to starting your own business?
That's a good question. There's a franchise for almost everything on earth. I remember one time there was a lady who approached me about she had a midwife franchise, like, you know, the people that come to your house and give birth at your house, you know, and help you give birth. She wanted to franchise that because she had a system. She had figured out how to find clients, what service to provide, the systems involved, the technology involved, the technology. And so I think almost anything can be franchised. But there's a couple problems. Sometimes businesses that are not doing very well decide that the only way they'll make money is if they go franchises. So they have a model that's okay, that doesn't make a lot of money. A lot of restaurants are like this. Restaurants that are struggling, that don't make a lot of money, but they have a cool concept. They have a cool business. It looks fun. They'll start a franchise because a lot of people come to them and go, dude, this place is awesome. I want to franchise it. But the actual business doesn't make a lot of money. It's a slog. It's really hard. The margins are really low. And you'd be surprised how many businesses out there are franchises, and they're like 10, 20, 30, 50 locations. But as a whole, the business doesn't do very well.
No kidding.
There's a lot of those. Because people end up buying that franchise not because of the unit economics, not because it makes great money. They buy it because they fall in love with the concept. Like, oh man, I've always dreamed of having a sandwich shop, or I've always dreamed of having
a Hooters, baby. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like you see this in the vans. You know, like there's franchises out there that you just buy a van, right? The food truck.
Yeah.
You have no idea how many entrepreneurs are in love with the idea of driving a food truck around and opening it up and going to concerts and going to activity and, you know, I mean, having a line out the door, only to find out that when they open it, the business sucks. They can't make enough money. They're married. It's like they just bought a job because they never make enough money to open truck number 2, number 3, number 4. And so your question was, when do I know it's time to franchise? I mean, that anybody can franchise whatever they want, right? It's not that hard. You can franchise a failing business. You can. I think the big question is what franchise should I buy?
Right.
You know, you got to be really careful what franchise you buy. It's got to be something that matches your aptitude. So Robert Christensen, the guy that bought our first franchise,
right?
Our franchise is really driven on relationship building. You've got to build relationships of trust with referral sources. That's how you build it. It's a B2B business. Rob was a B2B expert. Rob had done B2B sales for 20 years before he bought an Amada Senior Care. So he was the ideal person for our franchise. Also, our first location was extremely successful. Multi-million-dollar operation that had built by two guys that were sales relationship driven type of guys. So Rob looked at our business. He goes, if Chad and Tafa, my two partners, right? If Chad and Tafa could build that successful of a business and they're good at building relationships, then Rob said, there's no reason I can't do the same thing. There's no reason I can't go to Washington, do exactly what they did, because I'm good at building relationships. I understand the business, and not build a business just as good. And he did. He did, right? He built an amazing business in Washington. So you've got to make your research and make sure that this business is complementary to you, to your values, your experience, you're big, what you're really good at, and it minimizes the things that you're bad at. Don't go buy a franchise that is dependent on your failure and what you're bad at. Right. I mean, that's a bad idea. People do it every day. People do it every day. It's the craziest thing.
It's like a sort of masochism at the end of the day. It's funny how that works. It's interesting, dude. So let's say you're an entrepreneur you're thinking about starting your business, or franchising. There's two paths that you're looking at. You can buy a franchise or you can start your own thing. How do you know when it's time or when the right choice is to buy the franchise as opposed to starting your own business?
Oh, I think it's the big idea.
Right.
So it's big idea, guys. There's nothing wrong with this. So there's a friend of mine that about 15 years ago was living in a college town, and in Missouri, I think. Living in a college town, he had this job and he wasn't very happy. And he's like, you know what? I want to start a business. And he said, but here's the deal. I have zero ego. He's like, I just want to start something I can't screw up. When he told me this, I thought, man, that is one of the most beautiful things anybody's ever told me. Forget your ego. Forget, some people want to, they want to start a business. That when they go to like a dinner party, they go, you know what I do? People go, what? And you say, blah, blah, blah. And people go, wow. Like, no.
Same kind of
This
people that
dude
name
is
the
like,
business after them, like,
exactly.
Bob's jersey printing store. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like your name on the door, right?
Yeah.
Well, this dude is like,
Opposite way to
I
look
just
at
want to
it,
start
though.
something. Yeah, this guy's like, I want to start something I can't screw up. So he goes around town, he looks at businesses for sale because doesn't have a big idea. And there is a Little Caesars pizza for sale. Dingy, small, old Little Caesars for sale. The owner was just older and wanted to get out. You know Little Caesars, right? The pizza place.
Oh, yeah.
Little Caesars, right? And he looks at the numbers. They're good. They're not crazy. They're good. They're steady. It's a college town. There's like, 3 employees just busting out pizza. There's no dinner room, He looks at it and goes, again, he's kind of like, I'm an idiot. He's like, I'm an idiot. He goes, there's no way I can screw up this business.
Right.
So he buys it. Today, he owns, and I can't remember what the number is, like 30 Little Caesars.
Wow.
Another 20 Great Clips, haircutting salons.
Okay.
He does over 10 million in gross revenues a year with all of his businesses. He has started his own investment company. So when you talk about starting your own or starting a franchise, what you need to find out is what type of entrepreneur you are, and you have to be realistic with yourself. I think one of the guys that talks a lot about this is Gary Vaynerchuk, where he says, self-awareness is one of your biggest powers, right? You have to be self-aware. Do you have this big idea that you want to start this thing, or you invented this thing, or you make the best burger that you've ever known and you want to go do that? Go do it. Go do it. And even if you fail, at least you have no regrets because you had a dream. They wanted to start something. But if all you want to do is just make sure you don't want to screw something up, start a franchise or buy an existing business, right? It could be a franchise or not, but buy an existing business that's already proven. go operate it. And a lot of people go, well, I don't want to do that because I don't want to be a franchisee. I want to be the CEO. I want to be the man. I want to have my name on the brand, right?
Right.
Well, it doesn't mean you won't do that someday.
Hmm.
Like when my buddy bought this Little Caesars, it wasn't that he was going to own that one location for the rest of his life. And in fact, he didn't. He just got a base hit. He became an entrepreneur, bought a business, got it running. Okay, now what? Now go ahead and build a Bob's Burger or a tech company. Do whatever the heck you want. It doesn't have to be the only thing you ever do.
Right. Okay. Interesting. So you're saying like there's two types of entrepreneurs. One is a hyper creative individual who's got the big ideas. The Steve Jobs is out there. But then there's another type of entrepreneur who is more like Wozniak, more systems oriented, more taking something that's already working and not going to try to tinker with it, because this is a major problem when it comes to buying a franchise, is using the proven system as opposed to trying to tinker with it, saying, oh, I know better than this, so I'm going to do my way, right? Like, for example,
Yeah.
the best person to buy a McDonald's is a farmer, because the farmer is not going to say, well, I'm a marketing expert, so I'm going to change the McDonald's marketing strategy in my town. And then they go bankrupt and wonder what the hell happened, right? Farmers will be the best franchisees because they follow strategic instructions. And so you're saying, yes, there's two types. That's how you know if you're going to be a franchisee or you have a big idea kind of dude, right?
Yeah. And you'll be miserable if you're a tinker. Like Kyle, that was perfect what you said. I mean, it's so true, man. If you're a tinker and you like to break the mold, you're going to be miserable in a
Right.
franchise
Yeah.
because you're always trying to change it. Now, we actually, we do have guys and girls in our franchise that are tinkers, but they tinker with other things. Like you have the ability to follow a
Mm,
system and you make money out of the system and go tinker with your other stuff.
right.
That's totally cool, right?
Mm,
But if you're always trying to change it and you can see a different way, it's like, no, man, just or don't buy the franchise, right? If you're not going to follow the model exactly, or if you think the model's broken, why are you buying it?
right. Okay. No kidding, dude. So like my question becomes, how do you know what franchise to buy? And you sort of answered this question already by saying, like if you've always wanted to own a Hooters and it matches your values and your system of thinking, then okay, sure. That's how you can know what franchise to buy. So the question becomes, how do you go about identifying your values in this case, or how do you go about knowing what franchise to buy?
Well, I'm glad you're asking because we are actually right now in the throes of launching our system. So we've realized that it is missing in the market, which is
Mm,
we've been very good at building franchise companies. And now we're launching our system of how to help you find the business you were born to run. If there is a system, there is a methodology to it. And there's several steps that you should follow to be able to find the right business. And what I love about what we're launching is we don't really care what business that is. It can be an Amada, it can be a Jersey Mike's, it can be Orange Theory, it can be
mm,
whatever you want. But if you follow this process that we're setting up, it's so cool you ask because we're like in the throes of setting up this whole thing right now. The
mm,
funnel, the education of it. If you follow the system, we believe that you can find the one business that is right for you. And what's crazy about it, Kyle, is there are seriously over 1,000 business models out there that are dying to find the right entrepreneur.
mm,
That's just so insane. There are all
mm,
these people who want to start businesses. There's all these people that have businesses that need to be started, and they're not finding each other. And
mm,
that's what we really want to create. We want to create that the way to find it, but not just but making sure that match is right. So
mm.
that's coming.
So you're
That's
starting the
coming.
Tinder. You're starting the Tinder of finding. It's like you're the middleman. The Uber of
That's
you're
right.
not owning the cars. You're connecting the driver and the passenger together. You're connecting
Yeah,
the big idea kind of person with the individual who is going to be the operator and be able to expand on their idea and franchise it. It's
that's
interesting.
right.
It's fascinating, dude. Oh, it's an
Yeah.
interesting idea.
And
How
this
did you?
this comes from there's so many people who look at Amada, for example. We've
Right.
had over 30,000 people look at Amada, and yet only 175 of them
Hmm.
have become franchisees.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying the podcast, and I want to let you know that I've got a free book that you can get if you want to tap into more of these resources. And you can get that for free at kylesbook.com. Back to the podcast.
And so we've talked to a lot of people where we're very honest with them. We say, Mada's not right for you. Like what? What do you mean? And you go, no, listen, I'm telling you, this is just not the right opportunity for you. And previously it was kind of like, so, good luck. But we've really started to realize that, well, but what if we could help you find the right opportunity for you, right? So it doesn't mean you're a bad entrepreneur. It just means that you got to find the right thing. And the steps are really interesting. Like, for example, we have this assessment developed by a scientist that is not a personality assessment. It analyzes a lot about you, and it matches you with the right franchises, for example, and the right companies and type of companies. So there's some scientific things that you can do to make sure that that you are really truly a match for the right opportunity. And so there's things that we're putting together and offering, and we'll launch that here pretty soon.
Right on, man. So let's get into it a little bit. If you're okay with that, because I'm curious, like if I'm an entrepreneur who's thinking about franchising, how do I know what franchise to look into?
Yeah. So there's some hard things that you need to do first. One is depending on your investment level is going to determine what it is that you're going to start and what your options are. So you back up a little bit to think that you can start your own big idea person. You can buy an existing business, which you can go buy your local. I have a friend of mine, Hike, who owns the mechanic firm that I take my car to. He's not a mechanic. He just bought the place. He was looking for business to buy, and he just bought it. It prints a bunch of money. It does really well. He does great service. He hires the right people. Dude's not a mechanic. So they're okay. So start your own big idea. Buy an existing business that's just not a franchise, just it's already running, or start a franchise. I mean, you're great. Those are the three ways you can start a business, right? I mean, that's it. So regardless of how big your idea is, if you say, what I really want to do, I want to start a McDonald's, and you go, but I have $100,000 to my name. You're not starting the McDonald's. That's not what you're doing. And so some hard things that we need to do is we need to make sure we go through a financial plan with you about how much do you have already saved? What would the SBA lend to you? How good is your credit? And do you have other ways to come up with funds to be able to start a business? Are you doing it with a partner? Are you doing and that may not be at the very front end of the process, but you must do that. And the reason I bring that up, there's so many people that we speak to that say, I really want to start a home care company. And yet they have no idea about the investment level of that business. Or they want to start a Orange Theory Fitness, and then they go after it, but they've never even looked at the financials. So again, financials are going to be a big thing that you must do. And there's a process to doing that. There's the right companies to talk to make sure your SBA lending can be approved or not. Making sure that your credit is right, if it needs to be right. So that's one of them. Number two, we need to make an assessment of your aptitudes, your experience, your goals, your values, what you enjoy, what you don't. My dad, when we moved to this country back in 1991, my dad bought a Blimpies restaurant. So my dad was, I want to be an entrepreneur. I don't have a big idea, so I'm going to buy an existing business that is a franchise. Blimpies is like a Subway. There's very few of them left. And my dad hated it. Why? Because it's customer service focused. You are operating the business, you're making the subs, you're hiring people. And when people would come to my dad and say, you put mayonnaise on my sandwich, and I told you not to put mayonnaise, my dad would yell at them and kick them out of the restaurant.
The opposite.
He was like the soup
He made
Nazi.
the classic mistake of choosing something that put him into a job, whereas he could have just gotten a job, had less risk, had less problems, but he did something that he didn't want to do at the end of the day, right? So if you were to go back to 1991 and tell your dad to start a business, how would you tell him? How would you counsel him?
Yeah, so my dad, my dad was a professor in BYU. He was a recruiter. So I would have gone service industry with my dad, right? I would have said, hey, you unless you're going to open a restaurant like Shaquille O'Neal opens restaurants. Like Shaquille O'Neal opens restaurants, but he's not working in the restaurant, right? He's an investor. So if my dad was going to do that, okay, but my dad be in the line making subs? No way, right? Yeah, I would have gone more in the service industry. There's a recruiting franchise that are good friends of mine who help people start the recruiting business, right? So that would be a great business. I think Amada Senior Care could have been a good business for my dad. But service industry, I think, as in service industry, I mean, you have home care, home services, um, roofing, HVAC, that kind of thing. Because roofing is not you. You're not up on the roof. Home care, you're not the guy providing the care, right? You're working with families. It's very B2B, very consultative. So when you start looking at the aptitude of the person, you gotta split out their dream. Like I've always thought it'd be fun to run a restaurant, man. I've seen a lot of movies with restaurant tours. I think it's such a cool life. Like, no, it's not. No, it's not, buddy. Like, that is a really difficult life, and it's not quite who you are. Okay, and then the other thing that you need to do is you need to expose this person to a variety of opportunities. What entrepreneurs do when they're looking is they get tunnel vision with a sexy business, which a lot of times is food. They get it. People are enamored with the new burger joint, the new cupcake joint, the new cookie joint, and that's all they can see. And so what we like to do is be able to expose people to several types of businesses within their aptitude, so that they can make the best decision for them. And that's not very scientific, right? You need to look at a few of those and make sure it lines up with what you want to do.
Right. Okay. So let's say that, and I assume part of the process is talking with existing franchisees to see what their day-to-day looks like, so that you can see if that's going to match up with what you want to do on a day-to-day basis. Right. I mean, you talk to people who are already doing it so you can see what it is, or would you just know what it is ahead of time?
No, Kyle, you're absolutely right. I
Right.
mean, we
Right.
have never, here's what's crazy. Out of the 175 locations we have in Amada Senior Care,
Yeah.
no one has ever been awarded a location, right? We've not allowed them to come into the
I like the way you
system
put that.
unless they've
Awarded.
spoken to at least one franchisee.
Interesting. Okay. So let's say you're interviewing a franchisee to find out what, and essentially it is an interview process. You're finding out what their day-to-day looks
Yeah.
like, right? What are some of the questions that you would go about asking them once you've found a few ideas of places that you could franchise? What are some of the questions that you'd go about asking that owner so that you can really start to get the information you need?
I think what you want to find out from that owner, a lot of people don't think about this, is what did you do before this?
Interesting.
What was your career before this?
Hmm.
Because what you're trying to identify when you're looking at a franchise is, will I be the right entrepreneur for this?
Right.
And if you interview 5 different franchise partners of that brand who are successful, right? And by the way, when you are looking at a franchise, it's okay for you to talk to successful, not so successful, and brand new. Um, Even every brand out there has the not so successful franchisees. Doesn't mean it's a bad brand. It means that that entrepreneur is not executing correctly. Potentially, that's what it means. Unless the brand sucks and everybody sucks, then it's bad, right? So look at what is the profile of the successful ones, and how similar
Wow.
are you to those people?
Mm.
Because the model is the model, right? You're not going to change the model. You're not, you're going to have to execute what the model is. So how successful are the top 10? I mean, sorry, what is the background of the top 10?
Right.
And what is it that they did to be in the top 10?
Mm.
And then you want to talk to a few of the folks that are your middle, struggling, not quite figuring it out. And again, it's not the judgment of the brand. Look at who they are. And I'll tell you, you'll usually find a pattern. You usually find a pattern of what is the background or what type of people are they, what their aptitudes are. And you're going to see a pattern with the top 10 of what those folks are like.
Mm.
If there's not a pattern, that's okay. But that, a pattern or not, whatever you find there is going to give you a ridiculous amount of information about you. And it'll also tell you if you should not be part of that group. If you're not going to fit in, if you don't see a lot of patterns of you being similar. And then, of course, now you're going to start getting into what are the margins of the business? What's the tough part of the business? What do you love about it? What do you hate about it? Would you acquire this now, knowing what you know now? Would you still acquire this franchise?
Mm.
And then obviously getting to a net profit number. If you're making $200,000 right now in your job and you want to start a business, and this is part of what our process is as well, is what do you want? Are you happy with just opening a business that has a potential of making you 200 grand, which is what you make now? Because you want freedom. So if I can make 200 grand without the boss, and I call the shots, but I'm never going to make more than 200 grand in this business. Is that okay with you? If most of the franchisees in that business are making 200 grand, not $1 million a year, not $50,000 a year, they're making 200 grand. Is that a happy place for you? And so you need to find out what that bottom line number is. And I know this sounds weird, of course you would, but listen, I'm telling you, there are so many people who buy franchises out there without ever identifying what the bottom line number is going to be.
Really? Huh. It seems like that's the
It's
first thing you would go about
unbelievable.
finding out first, dude. Like, okay, but like the
It's
question is,
unbelievable.
how the hell do you actually find out the bottom line number though? Like, do you just straight up ask the guy, the franchisee himself? And what if he doesn't tell you? I mean, how do you go about finding out these numbers?
Yeah, so there's a nice way to do it, which is that you talk about gross and net profit. So as you're doing an analysis about an industry or about a franchise, you start to understand what the net is in the business or in the industry. And so instead of asking how much money did you make last year, which is kind of personal,
Right.
and we're in a culture where that's kind of weird to ask.
Yeah.
Not all cultures are like that, which is kind of strange. But you can say, well, what does a net profit look like for you? Now, I'll tell you, if you also, I think, and this is kind of getting deep into franchising, but I think you also need to build a relationship with that franchisee you're talking to. Don't just call and be like, hey, I'm looking at this franchise. Can you tell me if it's good?
Mm.
This is another entrepreneur that even if you don't buy that franchise, it would be great for you to know. It's somebody who took a risk, built a business, is in it, and who can maybe become a good resource for you.
Right.
So build a relationship, chat with them, ask them about their family, tell them about your background, like become friends with this person. Don't just rent them out and ask them questions and hang up the phone, because you don't even care about them. You all you care about is you and your business. Because if you can have 2 or 3 calls with that entrepreneur, you'll eventually get to the point where they'll be like, hey man, let me shoot you my P&L, right? And once they start trusting you,
Right.
they might share more information with you, but don't expect that trust to come up like immediately.
Right. I mean, like it sounds like you've got some similarities with these folks. You're both interested in the same franchise model, and people love talking about what they're up to, right? This is something that he doesn't get to talk
Yeah.
about at dinner with his wife at home because she doesn't give a fuck. So when it comes down to it, they like having the opportunity to talk about what they're doing. And so really you're doing them a benefit. You're doing them a favor by giving them that outlet, right? That's something that I think a lot of people miss is they look at it as though, oh, I'm trying to get something out of this person. But really what you're doing is you're giving them an opportunity to talk about what they love. And so if you look at it from that lens, you're talking about getting in a lot easier than you would otherwise. Let's walk through the whole process step by step. Can you bring me back? Like, let's say I'm an entrepreneur and you're counseling me on how to choose my franchise model. You mentioned some psychometric profiling that you go into. Where would we start if that was the dynamic, you and I right now?
Yeah, so we'd have you fill out an application because the application puts everything into perspective about you. And the application process actually has a bunch of different businesses and industries that we want you to just mark the ones that are highly interesting to you, not interesting, or I would never do it.
Okay.
And we may still dive into, the ones that I would never do it, because you may have an inaccurate description of what that is or an impression,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
But that starts to allow us to understand what is it that are no-goes for you. Even if we think that there's there's a franchise right now called the Milkshake Factory that's just exploded. It's really weird how franchises are kind of like brands, like shoe companies. Like a shoe explodes, or a brand explodes, or a TV show, or you know what I mean. Like there's a fad to things. Milkshake Factory is the one right now. People are buying those in droves. It's the weirdest thing.
Mm.
I don't know the specifics about it, how good it is or not, but and so somebody might be perfect for that, right? And if they say that they would never, ever, ever, ever do food, well, we want to know that, right? Because we may want to have that conversation of, what do you mean by food, right? What are you thinking about food? Have you thought about just a place that serves one thing and one thing only? If I don't even know if that's a good model or not, but I mean, like, but having that application process is important. Going through the profile that identifies what type of business would they be ideal for, going through funding. And then there's a little bit of detective work, which is based on all this, let's have you talk to these three brands.
Mm.
And we didn't want you to look at how did that go, right? So if Amada is one of the brands, and you speak to us, and you come back to your coach, and you say, yeah, you know what? I just realized I do not want to be in charge of people that are sick. I don't want to be in charge of caregivers. I thought it'd be great, but I don't like it. Well, that gives your coach some information of, got it. Okay, very interesting. So now I've got an industry that we can start removing from the process. And through this process is interesting, because you start to realize that people come in looking for a sandwich shop, and they leave with a disaster recovery roofing business,
Mm.
because they just had no idea what their true aptitude is. And it's nice because at times you save people from making a really costly mistake, um, of getting into the wrong things, like what happened with my dad, right? I don't want that to ever happen to anybody else.
Right. Mm. So going back to what happened with your dad, because that's something that touches you at a deep level. I can tell when you talk about it, because it's something that touches your heart, dude. Um, let's say that somebody's thinking about starting a business, but they haven't done the full research in terms of what that actually entails for them. How do they go about formulating these relationships? Like, give me a step-by-step process. Like, let's say you got to be me and you were saying, hey, look, let's go to these restaurant owners and talk to them to form these relationships, right? How would you go about making these relationships to build that trust so that you can start to get the numbers at the end of the day?
Just call them up. There's no secret. You just call them
Okay.
up.
Okay.
Now, every franchise has a list with contact information for all of their franchisees. So it's there, right?
Right.
You just got to reach out and start chatting with them.
Hmm.
Um, and and your emotional intelligence is important. And here's the thing: is you need to understand too that when you call that franchisee and you go through that validation call, and hey, how's the brand and all that, that franchisee is going to be calling the corporate team and going, hey, I just spoke to Steve.
Hmm.
He's awesome. Or hey, I just spoke to Steve. The dude's a lunatic.
Ah,
Like he should not be. So, you're being evaluated. You got to remember, this isn't, just whatever franchise you want to get into, you're just going to get into. Most franchisors, or I shouldn't say that, franchisors should be very specific and very choosy.
hmm.
And so the franchisees are too. The franchisees are looking at you going, you're going to be at the annual conference with me. You might be my neighbor.
Right.
Uh, I better like you. So it's like any other dating process you've ever been through. You got to call them. You got to be nice. You got to be cool, and you got to build a relationship. I don't know if I can teach somebody to do that. If there's a process to it, you just got to dial and talk to people.
And not try to go for the
And
kill right away, not try to get the numbers
yeah,
right
don't
off
go
the
for the
bat.
kill.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. You said second or third call for that, eh? Because you got something in common with these people. You're both interested in the same things. Feel like you could build rapport relatively easily with each other. So that's a good point too. Okay, so
Yeah.
dude, anything else you think that an entrepreneur who's thinking about buying a franchise would need to know when it comes down to making this decision?
No, I think we covered that. Be open to the many ways to make money.
Right.
Um, and be less emotional to an attachment to a brand.
Mm,
Um, your goal should not be to impress your neighbor or your family,
mm,
your spouse with a business that you think is sexy.
right.
That's the wrong thing, man. Or the brand that's hot right now. This is hot right now. Everybody's doing it. Like, this is so cool. I'm gonna open this, and you're blinded. It's so crazy, man. You get blinded by the light of all these things in front of you, and when there's another business that's not sexy,
Right.
that no one's ever heard of, but makes a fortune, and it's ideal for you. Um, that's what you should be starting, right? That's what you should be starting. Be open-minded, and don't be so emotional when you're gonna go start a business.
No kidding, dude. Yeah, even if it's an auto mechanic shop and you're not a mechanic, but the guy that owns the franchise, the franchisor is thinking, okay, so this person's got the life that I want to be living, something similar to. So I'm not gonna go buy a Louis Vuitton store when I could be buying something that will be actually in line with my values on a day-to-day basis that I'm gonna be happy doing. And that's something that,
Yeah.
dude, it's crazy that people don't even think about that. They buy it based on
No.
what's gonna impress their neighbor, who really doesn't even give a shit about them. Really, at the end of the day, it's funny how we want to impress people who really don't think about us as much as we think that they do. So you're saying to put that
Yeah.
aside? No kidding, right? Put that aside for now and say, okay, let's look at this logistically. What is gonna make me the happiest over a long period of time, and also make me the most amount of money, give me the lifestyle that I want? Dude, I think that wraps it up, brother. That you've given us the step-by-step process to going about getting a franchise, or separating yourself from a big idea, dude. If you're down that road of more creative, then you've given us essentially the blueprint of how to go about franchising. So, dude, thank you so
Hmm.
much for that, man. Anything you want to
Yeah,
add?
you bet.
Hell yeah, man. Anything you want to add?
No, that's it. No, I think I've taken so much of your time, man. I think this is great.
I
This
love
is
it,
great.
dude.
We
I
could
love it.
Anybody has any questions about it, they can always reach out. We love the franchise industry. We love entrepreneurs. Um, and our goal is to help as many people as possible, if they want to, leave corporate America and start businesses that really matter to them.
I love that, dude, because you're helping people that will go about helping other people. So you're the meta helper that's helping others who are
There
helping.
you go.
Yeah, right. So you see how exponentializes there. I love it, dude.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, man, I love that for real. Okay, dude, absolute pleasure to have you here, man. And I see the guitar in the back, dude. You got to play me a song one day. I'd like to jam with you, but until then, dude, it's been a total pleasure, man.
Hey, Kyle, thank you so much.
Oh, and really quick, how do you go about getting in contact with you? That's one thing I want to ask. And you've got the company that's coming up, right? So tell me a little bit about that before we go.
Yeah, so you can always reach out to. I think the social network that I'm most active in is LinkedIn. We do a tremendous amount of marketing on LinkedIn, so anybody can reach out to me, Marcos Moura. You will find me super easily on LinkedIn. I don't even if I don't even know if I have a Facebook anymore. So um, you can definitely reach out to me on LinkedIn is the best way. And then the next company of helping people find businesses that will come out soon. I don't even have a name for it. We're building the process of it. I don't really care about the name. It's really more of a
The
90-day
lesson
challenge, right?
That's a lesson in and of itself, right? Most people start with the name, they start with the logo, and you're going into the
Yeah,
operations of it. You're making sure that it's a solid business that has the standing on solid ground, rather than going into it with the egoic lens of the name and the looking at it from that viewpoint. And so that's another lesson in itself, dude. So yeah,
yeah,
when you've got that to promote, hell yeah, man, hit me up and we can record
got
something,
it.
get it out there for you.
Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate it, man.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that podcast episode. And if you want to get a free copy of my book, go to kylesbook.com and you can get a copy there. I'll talk with you soon.